My name is Nick Floyd. I have a long history with Magic the Gathering. I created the Dandan variant. Now I'm creating this. Welcome to Magic Storytime. This is Magic Storytime Trivia Compilation number 1. Okay, I can't seem to think of a good Magic Trivia question for episode 15, so I decided to compile all the trivia questions I have asked up to this point in a standalone video. Episode 15 is coming, but not this week. Hope you like the trivia video. If you have seen all of my videos, you might remember some of these even if you didn't know the answers before. Mark Rosewater, the head designer of Magic since 2003, started with Wizards of the Coast in '94 by approaching their magazine editor with the idea for what regular feature for the Duelist, by name or description. The answer is Magic the Puzzling, a monthly Magic puzzle that presented a game state and required a certain outcome to be met to solve the puzzle. It was my favorite feature in the Duelist. What was the name of the late 90s and early 2000s basic forum-style website run by Frank Kasimoto that was the first real consolidated site where players could post tournament results and deck lists, and players could see what was winning and prepare for the meta on a more or less global scale? The trivia answer is the Dojo, or the Magic Dojo. Archives still exist online in various states of completeness. I had to ask this question before I mentioned it in one of my videos. In the early 1990s, Magic the Gathering creator Richard Garfield originally contacted the fledgling Wizards of the Coast while seeking a publisher for a board game that he had designed, which Wizards of the Coast did publish after the success of Magic the Gathering. What was the name of that board game? Hint, it's still in production by another publisher. The trivia answer for today is Robo Rally, a fun game where players have to program their robot at the beginning of the round to try and reach flags, not knowing exactly what the other players' robots will be programmed to do, and avoid hazards of a crazy board representing a factory floor. The best part is when you make a mistake, or something unexpected screws up your program, but you have to carry out the rest of the program to your robot's detriment. I have the 2005 Wizards of the Coast Avalon Hill edition, which I still play whenever I get the chance. Magic the Gathering has had over 100 expansions over the years. Traditionally, players mark the time they began playing by stating the expansion that was current at the time they began, not the year. Magic's first expansion was Arabian Nights in late 1993, which was the first printing of Dandan. Yay, Dandan! How many expansions can you name in order from Arabian Nights onward? Answer: Arabian Nights, Antiquities, Legends, The Dark, Fallen Empires, Ice Age, Homelands, Alliances, Mirage, Visions, Weatherlight, Tempest, Stronghold, Exodus, Urza's Saga, Urza's Legacy, Urza's Destiny, Mercadian Masks, Nemesis, Prophecy, Invasion, Planeshift, Apocalypse, Odyssey, Torment, Judgment, Onslaught, Legions, Scourge, Mirrodin, Darksteel, Fifth Dawn, Champions of Kamigawa, Betrayers of Kamigawa, and Saviors of Kamigawa. Okay, if you can go that far, you win. Personally, I started playing in the dark, but just weeks before Fallen Empires was released. I consider Fallen Empires when I started. Wow, Fallen Empires was junk. If Revised wasn't the core set at the time, I doubt I'd have kept playing. I can remember the expansion order until Urza's block, where I confused Legacy and Destiny. Then I can't remember the Masks block small expansion. Then I'm really spotty until I got strongly into Commander during Battle for Zendikar in late 2015. During the days of standalone expansions and blocks, 1996's Mirage was the big expansion with Visions and Weatherlight attached. Then 97's Tempest was Stronghold and Exodus as its small expansions. This continued for years, but the first standalone expansion with its own basic lands was Ice Age, released in June of '95, followed by Homelands and Alliances. But Homelands didn't have any story connection to Ice Age, only came in 8-card boosters, like Fallen Empires, and was only considered part of Ice Age block for a lack of a more appropriate sister expansion to Alliances. Many years later, Wizards released the second small expansion to the Ice Age block, supplanting Homelands in that place. What was the name of that expansion, and what year was it released? Answer: the missing expansion from Ice Age block was Cold Snap, released in 2005, 10 years after Ice Age. According to the internet, Wizards fabricated a tale that it was designed alongside Ice Age and delayed due to inter-office politics, and Cold Snap appeared as though it was designed alongside Ice Age, containing mechanics such as slow trips and snowlands, both mechanics that had seemingly been dropped. But it was in fact a newly designed set made to mimic Magic of a decade earlier. I was glad to have a few more slow trips from Cold Snap when I set out to design my Trippin variant game, as slow trips make the whole thing work by slowing down the action. Link in the description.
So in the early years of Magic in the mid-1990s, the internet was still in its infancy, and information online was not well organized, especially for niche hobbies, like the early collectible card game market. Like sports cards, finding the going prices for cards in your collection took finding the most recent price guide publication and looking it up in its pages. These were magazines whose primary function was as a price guide. I have previously mentioned the magazines of The Duelist and Inquest. The Duelist was published by Wizards of the Coast, and it would not have been appropriate for them to publish a price guide for the secondary market, and it was news and articles about upcoming products and trends within the game. Inquest, on the other hand, had articles about the game as well as a price guide. But there was another magazine prior to Inquest that was primarily a price guide for Magic and other collectible card games, with fewer articles. What was the name of that publication? Hint: its name, a term in legendary or mythical divination, is now a Magic the Gathering keyword ability, though with a slightly different spelling. Answer: the other magazine and price guide for Magic and the constantly changing collectible card game of the month in the mid-1990s that predated Inquest was called Scry, with an E. Scry was published from 1994 until 2009. I only bought a couple of issues of Scry, as it was completely supplanted for me by Inquest magazine when it was published in 1995, as Inquest just had more to offer me with its higher emphasis on articles and humor as well as a price guide. According to the internet, Scry ceased publication in 2009, 2 years after Inquest ceased in 2007, and Scry was the longest running magazine for the collectible card game hobby. So, what do I know?
These days, all Magic players know that a card's expansion symbol is color-coded to identify the card's rarity. Black for common, silver for uncommon, gold for rare, and an orange color for the mythic rare. Looking at older cards, newer players may not realize that this was not always the case. The mythic rare rarity did not exist in the early years of Magic, and the expansion symbols were just black, no matter what the rarity of the card. Today's trivia question is: what was the first Magic the Gathering expansion where Wizards of the Coast began color-coding the expansion symbols based on a card's rarity? And when was it released? And as a bonus question, what was the first expansion to introduce the mythic rare rarity and the red-orange expansion symbol? And when was it released? Answer: the first Magic expansion where Wizards began color-coding the expansion symbol to identify the card's rarity was the Exodus expansion, released in June 1998. It was the third in the Tempest block and came out while I was finishing up my freshman year of college. I missed the Exodus pre-release because of finals, but I played it a bunch in the dorms my sophomore year. We were very happy to be able to identify a card's rarity at a glance, and couldn't understand why they hadn't done that from the beginning. And the answer to the bonus question is: the mythic rare rarity and the red-orange expansion symbol began with the release of Shards of Alara in October 2008. This was a few years into my longest Magic hiatus, and I wasn't playing at the time. I remember learning of the mythic rare rarity and being a little skeptical of the move, wondering if the best cards would now be rarer and more expensive for players to obtain. In the early 1990s, despite the popularity of Magic in the tabletop gaming community, In order to promote the game further, Wizards of the Coast was throwing out just about everything they could think of to get more people to play. One of these ploys was to hire writers and release fantasy novels based on the Magic world. Well, loosely based on the Magic world, which was largely still being developed. The first 4 Magic novels each contained a mail-in offer where Wizards of the Coast would send you a unique Magic card specific to that book and not available anywhere else. Today's trivia question is, can you name 2 of these early Magic the Gathering novels and any 2 of the 5 cards you could receive through the mail with them? Hint, one of the cards shares its name with the novel that contained the offer to receive it, and also came with a second card, both of which reference locations in the narrative of the novel. And a card that came with the later of the 4 was a MacGuffin in the book and remains a valuable card even though it has been reprinted several times. Answer. The first early Magic the Gathering novel was Arena, released in 1994 and written by William Forgetful. Wizards would send the cards Arena and Sewers of Estar, both are bad cards, and locations in the book. Then in 1995, they released the Greensleeves trilogy, all written by Clayton Emery. The first was Whispering Woods, which offered Windseeker Centaur, a red centaur creature with vigilance. Not a great card. The second was Shattered Chains, which would get you Giant Badger, again an unremarkable creature, which they felt the need to reprint in 8th edition. And finally, there was Final Sacrifice, which provided by mail the card Mana Crypt. Yeah, kinda out of balance with the other cards. And this was the only copy of Mana Crypt available for many, many years. I bought and read each of these novels in the 1990s, but never received any of the cards. I think I screwed up the instructions for the return mailing, or I forgot to mail the forms entirely. I was an unreliable teenager, I suppose. I remember that the Arena novel had a weird adaptation of the Magic rules and a loose representation of the anti-rule, which I guess they were still trying to push as a rule in Magic. The Greensleeves trilogy was okay. I remember the second book tried to tie into the story of the Arena novel's characters, even though the first book ignored its existence and had its own unrelated storyline. If you find a copy of these books and decide to read them, know that they have very few ties to the Magic lore you likely know. But Wizards has embraced the stories in recent years, releasing several characters as legendary creatures to excite older players who are now into Commander. In previous videos, I've mentioned how pre-releases were very different in the early years of Magic. They were large regional events, not smallish tournaments at the local game store. Also, there were no pre-release stamped cards for early pre-releases. When they did start offering pre-release cards as incentives for attending, it was a rare from the set and foil stamp with pre-release, but they were not foil cards. Foil Magic cards did not exist until it had to compete with Pokemon, which was first published in America by Wizards of the Coast. The biggest difference of pre-release cards today is that everyone got the same card and you were not allowed to play it in your pre-release deck. The question is, what was the first set to give away a foil stamped pre-release card, and what was that card? Answer. The first set to offer a pre-release card for all attendees was Tempest, and the card that everyone received was Dirt Cowl Worm. I missed the Tempest pre-release and didn't get one. The pre-release card for Stronghold was Revenant, which I did have. Wizards of the Coast got a little more creative later, using the date in the foil stamp and printing the chosen card in various languages that Magic cards were not normally printed in. And they eventually started printing them in foil. I have a tiny story about the Lightning Dragon pre-release card, but I will save that for a miscellany video because it was short and I was not directly involved. I had a good collection of these pre-release cards, and as collector pieces, I wish I had kept them. But I'm a player first and foremost, and they were never doing much for me in that regard. In the 1990s, Magic the Gathering, though a great game with a robust set of basic rules, was somewhat in flux with wording and rules detail changes. Probably the biggest change to the rules came in 1999 with the release of 6th edition. But some of the earlier rules changes played with the basic card types printed in the type line of the printed cards and which each had unique properties. A couple card types and subtypes were invented to later go away with better rules changes, i.e. originally creature spells were called summon spells, but that wasn't the only change. Today's trivia question is, what is the only card, a common, reprinted numerous times between 1993 and 1999, that was printed with 3 different card types in its type length over those years? Answer. The common card that was printed with 3 different type lines between 93 and 99 was Dark Ritual. It was originally an interrupt in Alpha 93 spell type which basically had its own stack. It would resolve first before other spells on the batch resolved, the bats being what the stack was originally called. Counter spells were also interrupts that could remove spells on the other spell batch before the stack would resolve. Then in 1996, the Mirage printing of Dark Ritual became a mana source, which was basically a spell that would provide mana without using the stack. Like tapping land for mana, it couldn't be countered or interacted with on the stack. Several times I had to explain this to players that I was introducing the Dandan deck to, pointing out that Mystical Tutor's reference to mana source does not mean sources of mana. It does not include lands. Finally, in 1999's 6th edition, a core set, which became the largest set of rules changes probably ever, codified, consolidated, and simplified the Magic rules and card wording to be more consistent and less confusing. Dark Ritual became an instant and functioned on the stack as any other instant, as it does today. You can counter Dark Ritual now, but you probably want to wait to save that counter spell for whatever your opponent is using the mana to cast. There was only one other card printed with the mana source card type. That is Dark Ritual's cousin, Culling the Weak, in Exodus. I played both cards in my Drain to the Last Blood Chief commander deck, but that's a story for another time. In the 1990s, Magic the Gathering had 2 regular constructed formats I've discussed on this channel repeatedly. They were originally named Type 1 and Type 2. They were the equivalent of what we know today as Vintage and Standard, respectively. There was also 2 constructed formats that were introduced in the summer of 1997, just as I was preparing to leave for college. These were briefly known as Type 1.x and Type 1.5. The question is, what was the eventual names of these 2 sanctioned constructed formats after they dropped the number-based naming convention? Hint, one of them is still played and still known by its name today, and the other was dropped as it was fully replaced by the popularity of the modern format in 2013. Answer. The 2 constructed formats added to Type 1 Vintage and Type 2 Standard in 1997 was Type 1.5 Legacy and Type 1.x Extended. I didn't have any faith in the future of the extended format, which allowed cards from Revised. I just thought Type 2 was really the only fair competitive constructed format, as even the best cards from Revised were getting hard to obtain. Even though I had nearly a full playset of all 10 Revised dual lands, short just a single tropical island, I didn't value them that much and never built decks using them anymore. Very few friends had any more than a few, so I sold them to a friend for a little bit of cash in my pocket when I arrived at college. Many of them were quite played, and I won't say how much I sold them for. I do wish I had them today, as they would be worth about $14,000, even in their rough condition. I hope you enjoyed this trivia compilation video. Before I wrap up, and on a Dandan side note, I will be attending the Shoebox Convention, March 13th, 14th, and 15th in St. Paul, Minnesota. This is the first ever Shoebox Convention, but I think it will likely be the largest Magic-focused convention in the US that is not an official Magic Con. I will be attending as a guest host, showcasing Dandan and other variants in their carnival area. They will be having a, air quotes, competitive Dandan event, and all kinds of interesting Magic events all weekend, as well as casual play space. There will be vendors and Magic artists. If you can make it, I'd love to meet you, sign some Dandans or memory lapses, and try your own Magic variants. Link to the website shoebox.gg is in the description. Second, Cal Jones, friend and prolific Dandan evangelist, through his merchandising business Stitcher Supply, is offering a double-long, 2-player playmat with beautiful Dandan-inspired artwork by Zeb the Cube Tutor. Graciously, Cal has offered me 5% of the proceeds for creating the Dandan variant that inspired it. He wanted to give me something back for giving him something that, quote, rekindled my love of the game. I told him if doing so would help promote it, I will accept. And it turns out Cal and Stitcher Supply will be attending Shoebox as a vendor. I hope Cal will have some time to play some Dandan with me. And finally, I want to remind my viewers that the Dandan Secret Lair drops in March on secretlair.wizards.com. I don't know the details or the exact day, but I have it on good authority that Wizards will drop a video online promoting its release within the next 5 or 6 weeks. Don't forget.
Thank you for joining me for this episode. Please like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment.